All right. Camera is on. Are we good? Okay. Whew. Let's see if I know how to do this. Let's go. Connectors, what's up? DK here. Hope you're having a good day. It is Restaurant Week here in York, Pennsylvania. So here's a link right here to Restaurant Week. It's rwyork.com. Go to the website, check it out. Amazing restaurants happening here. And it's a good segue into the topic today, which is advocacy. Now, when most people talk about advocacy, they think of big organizations, big movements, national nonprofit organizations that really spend most of their time in the advocacy space. And though I applaud those nonprofiteers all the time, I really think that what I want to talk about is advocacy on the local level. Because like my main man, Tip O'Neill, once said, all politics is local. Now, first things first, so I can get this crystal clear, there's a lot of misconceptions about the nonprofiteers and nonprofit organizations allowed to do advocacy. There's a lot of talk about if you are a 501c3, you are not allowed to advocate because that's political purposes and against your 501c3 standards. That's not entirely true. There's actually statute that says that you are able to a certain percentage of your budget to allocate dollars to advocacy. But even in this case, for this video, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the general principle of advocacy. What is it? Simply put, advocacy is your belief in a policy, procedure, initiative, idea, whatever the thing is, and your ability to share that story of your belief in that thing to someone else, to not just sway them, but just to get them a sense of what the other side might be, different perspectives that they may not have considered, just a way to remind people about different issues and topics and angles at which people come in at it. Advocacy is storytelling. And this is why I think it's a big deal that all nonprofits consider advocacy a core function of their work. Look, we've talked about this time and time again. The nonprofit sector is the tip of the spear when it comes to public policy, and it comes to changing public policy for the good of the order. We are often asked to do a lot of things that the public needs to have done, whether it's in the homeless space, or it's in arts and culture, whether it's in environment, whether it's in places of worship. We have a place at the table simply out of the work that we do. But if we wait just to be reactionary, we're just doing what has been said to us. That's not the complete picture. Nonprofits, staff, supporters, volunteers, everyone within the nonprofiteer sphere, we have a lot of words of wisdom when it comes to things like this. And too often we are considered left out of these conversations because we're not considered part of the table. We're not considered part of the policy-making side. The larger donors, the bigger nonprofits, for-profits, associations like the Retail Federation or the Manufacturers Association, those are always in play, but the nonprofit sector is kind of missed out. And again, as I say all the time, the craziest part of this, we're the third largest sector in America. Almost 12 million men and women go to work every day working in the nonprofit sector. To suggest that we don't have a seat at the table, kind of crazy. Anyway, what I want to really get at right now is the idea of advocacy on a local level. What you can do as an individual nonprofiteer, and what you can do representing your nonprofit sector. It's quite simple, actually. First is the most obvious thing in the world, vote. If you're not voting, what are we talking about here? But let's skip the obvious one right now. Voting is the easiest thing to do. But the second easiest thing to do is simply this. Tell your story. Tell the story of your organization, the impact you do, the programming that you are and that you're planning and that you're developing, and most importantly, tell your story to create activation. Get people excited about what you do and how you do it, and move people into your sphere. And while you're doing that, make sure your story is known by your local officials, whether it's your mayor, your city council, your county employees, your county, if you have a county commissioners, county council, whatever it is that your area has. Your people in positions of leadership need to know that 1, you exist, 2, the amazing work you do, and 3, that your voice matters when it comes to public policy. So you're probably saying to yourself right now, DK, this is great, but our organization does not have that sphere of influence. We don't have the ear of the mayor. We can't just call up and ask for the mayor. Really? Of course you can. Of course you can. Any citizen of any municipality can call their leaders and have a voice. The key to it is what you do with that voice when you get the schedule. When you call up the mayor's schedule and you get on the book, and you realize that you have a meeting coming up at 9 a.m., the question of who you're going to bring is always a big one, but also what you're going to say. So take 5 minutes and realize that this is what you can do. 1, prepare yourself, take some notes, get some stats and some figures on your area. The thing that you do really well is the best part of your story and the thing that you're going to be most comfortable about. But the one part that you don't have is the lead-in. And the lead-in is sort of so we all understand where we are. So if you're doing something about some census data, go to the census and make sure your numbers are right. Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you're doing state and local, whether it's county, city, all that statistical information is out there. Get some baseline numbers and some baseline figures so that when you tell your story, it's built on the foundation of here's where we are. If you're a nonprofit organization that isn't really impacted very largely, it's not a very big nonprofit, or your sphere is quite small, you don't worry about that at this point. Your numbers are there to give everybody a foundation to say, yes, this is the current situation as we see it. And then this is where your story really kicks in. Tell your story based on that impact area. So what are you doing since you set that foundation statistically? What are you doing inside that sphere? What are your programs enabled? What are your programs trying to conform to? What are your programs trying to break? What are the new ideas you're trying to build? This is where you tell your story of impact. And the reason you start with this is because you move on to the next part to challenge your public leaders that the work you're doing is great, but imagine what we can do even more with collaborative effort with you and government. Again, what is happening here is you're not asking for money. Advocacy sometimes is always brought up as a budgetary issue. We're fighting over budget. We're fighting over budget cuts. We're fighting over pay increases. We're fighting over some kind of thing that the city or state or county, the municipal governments are fighting budgetarily. Nothing like that is being said. What you are trying to do is just give everybody who is in the room a real clear understanding that the work you do is not only impactful for your community, but it makes good business, and it makes good political sense, and for this conversation, it makes good public policy sense. Do not get confused. This is not politics like we're advocating for a position and we're going to vote you in or out. That's for a different time and place. We can still do that, by the way. But for this meeting, you're talking public policy impact, not voting impact. And that's the funny rub about this, because once you start talking public policy and the impact of that, this will turn into a political conversation. A political figure, a person of a city council or a county council or a state rep, they're going to see what impact that is, and they're going to see sort of messaging that can be built around that. And you don't have to do it in a very overt way, like you need to follow us because politically it's good for your career. You need to say that our impact is strong, the story is impactful, the story is meaningful, and if we shared this story with more folks, not only would it increase our programmatic strength, but it would also make our community stronger. And in the end, isn't that what our politicians are trying to do? So guys, do not fear being advocates. We should be advocates. We should be the top advocates for our sector. If you're not a non-profiteer politician, if you're not a non-profiteer cheerleader, if you're not a non-profiteer stakeholder, then I wonder what you're doing in the sector, my man. You need to be out there representing the flag of nonprofit and nonprofit organizations. Like you buy local, like you buy and support local businesses and everything, we need to make sure that there is a buy and support nonprofits, because nonprofits define our community much more than we give ourselves credit for. But remember, a lot of what happens in our community in terms of our community's impact and power rests within the nonprofit sector. So it's our chance to tell our story. So get out there. I challenge each and every one of you right now in the communities that you represent. Get a hold of your mayor. Get on that schedule. Sit down with them and simply say, I want 5 minutes. 5 minutes to sit down and tell my story about our impact as a nonprofit sector and how we can work together. And make sure that they understand this isn't a question of dollars, allocating money from the budget, trying to raise money from this meeting. This is simply to say we are an ally. We deserve a seat at the table, and we deserve a seat very close to yours, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Mayor, because we can do great work, because we are doing great work. So what do you think? Do you guys have some things to talk about when it comes to public policy in your community now? Let me know in the comments below this, or also you can email me right here, doug@connectthedotsmovement.org, and just tell your story about what you're doing for public policy and advocacy within your neck of the woods. I'd love to hear of it. And by the way, if you're interested in working with us here at the Connect the Dots Movement, right here's my email again, doug@connectthedotsmovement.org. I'd love to talk with you and your organization to see how we can talk more about advocacy. Maybe set up some policy sessions and discussions so we can position you and pivot your impact so you can start telling your story locally. We at Connect the Dots Movement work with nonprofits and small business entrepreneurs to really impact their social enterprise and really impact the communities that they serve. So if you want more information on us, our website is right here, connect.dotsmovement.org. We're also on Facebook, and you can like and share this video there. We are at facebook.com/Connect the Dots Movement. And last but certainly not least, we are very much involved with Twitter. In fact, Twitter gets me a lot of the topics that I do here. And also when I set up my Q&A with DK, we do questions from Twitter. So check me out on Twitter at WeConnectDots, or you can always follow me personally. I'm at DKnight44. It's for Syracuse. It's the magic number at Syracuse. Go Cuse. Go Cuse! Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. My name is DK. This has been Connect the Dots Movement, and you have just been connected. I'll see you around. Hey! Buy Local Coalition here in York and York County, Pennsylvania. Go check these guys out. Great organization to be a part of. You talk about great advocates representing the great stories of our small business. Buy local, baby. Nonprofit power.